So today I'm going to talk you through my regular meal prep that I do a big one once a week, usually on a Sunday, and then in the middle of the week I just basically top it up. So the point of this is I'm going to use very little oven and hob. I'm using mainly sort of appliances, so it's very budget friendly in terms of the electric, and also very adaptable. So if you're not at home and you're working away from home, you can take these appliances with you if you need to, and cook on the go if you really need to do that. So we're going to keep it bodybuilder style because I am a bodybuilder. However, we're going to add a few twists in there as well. So I'm going to show you a few of my favourite recipes for my staple meals throughout the day. Today we're going to cook a few of my staple meals as mentioned. So we're going to do the chicken ginger cashew in the slow cooker. We're going to do lean spicy beef burgers, and also a omelette sort of bake kind of thing that I've come up with basically. And also just prep all my carbs, which is rice and potatoes and then vegetables. So pretty simple, straightforward, efficient. This is a diet I use and works for me to lose fat on, and I've used this consistently throughout my last 2 preps, so watch and learn. We're going to start with the stuff that's out here. So this is everything that goes in my steamer because that takes longest. So first things first, I put everything into the steamer, chop it up, put it in the steamer, let that just do its thing. I then move on to my rice cooker. This has been the best purchase of 2021, I think. I don't know why I didn't get one before. Then we're going to make the beef burgers and fry them off. While they're sort of cooking, we're then going to go to the slow cooker, put all the chicken in there, and then finish off with the omelette. Pretty simple, so hopefully you can follow along. So we're going to start with sweet potato because I put them in the bottom of the steamer. I know this sounds a little bit sort of perhaps OCD, but they take longest to cook. Then we're going to go on to the new potatoes. All I do with the sweet potatoes, I just cut them in half and half again, and then half the other way, and then just repeat that for the full bag. So I usually cook about a bag and a half at a time, and then depending if you like the skins or not, I peel them off afterwards. The skins have got quite a lot of fibre in them, but it's not the actual best use of carbs, so yeah. So we're just going to chop through all this bag, and then I'm going to just chuck them in the steamer at the bottom. So the things that take longest to cook go in the bottom of the steamer, and then we're going to just sort of tear it up with the veg at the top there. So next are white potatoes. I tend to mix up between white potatoes and sweet potatoes because I've got a slower release rate of carbs basically. So white potatoes I tend to have on my second meal, and maybe like after training. It just depends how I'm feeling. They contain roughly about the same amount of carbs, so it's not really for the macros, but yeah, and it just gives a bit of variety. Just always tend to just steam them. I used to air fry them and do all sorts with them, and mash them for variety, but to be honest, when you're doing this, you're trying to stick to a lifestyle that's quite busy. It's just easier just to steam everything, especially when you're tired and you're getting towards the end of your prep. Obviously at the moment I'm at the beginning, so it's not too bad. So this is a full bag. This is going to last me about, this bag probably all week to be fair. That's the potatoes done. So next we're just going to move on to the broccoli. I tend to buy the frozen veg just because A, it's better for vitamins, and B, it's cheaper, and C, you don't have to prep it all. So now I'd normally be like having to sort of cut everything up. It's just a lot quicker to buy like ready, frozen and fresh stuff. So literally just chuck the whole bag into the steamer. If you can fit it in. Tend to find with veg anyway, it's better to do them in small batches, which is why I do things a couple of times a week, just to keep it a bit fresher. It's a bit nicer to eat. So Just save, there's only a little bit in the bottom of the bag there now, so yeah. So that's the veg and the potatoes done, ready prepped, ready to go. I'm going to steam this for about half an hour and come back to it later. Next we're going to move on to the rice cooker. Next we're going to move on to the rice. So I work in about 40 gram portions. I tend to make at least 7 portions at a time, depending on how my week's going to go and depending on how much rice I want to eat. But generally I want to eat rice maybe once a day after training generally. So we're going to weigh this out. And this is just normal like white basmati rice. There's no husk on it, so a lot of people think that brown whole grain rice is better, but you just tend to get a lot of husk around it, so it's not necessarily better. It's actually harder to digest. So I'm eating white rice because it's faster digesting with it not having that husk around it, so it's just better. This is just an Aldi one, it's nothing special, just pretty standard. So we're going to measure out 7 portions in here. So I always put just a few grams more. I know it's really like OCD this, but you've got to be when you're a bodybuilder, right? So I always put a few grams more in the rice cooker because it's a bit sometimes gets stuck to the bottom. So I just want to make sure I'm actually getting 40 grams. I am not missing out on food, especially when it's carbs. So always try and make sure I'm actually getting 40 grams in my meals. So all we do with this, you can see now that's just in there. All we're doing now is that's just rice in there. We're gonna put some water in. I just put in just to cover the rice, so just enough water to cover the rice. So just from the tap. So maybe a bit more. So this is about 1 centimetre over the top of the rice, and that usually works. I keep an eye on it. I try not to take the lid off while I'm cooking it. All that does, it's like an induction hob in there. If you've never seen a rice cooker before, that's how it looks. Honestly, like 30 quid from Argos, it was the best thing I bought. So all you do is you put the rice in there and that just bubbles away. It takes about 10-15 minutes for a whole week's worth of rice. It's also got a steamer basket in the top that comes with it, which is really good if you wanted to just quickly do some extra little veg or something like that. It's really economical and really quick and easy. So that's the rice done. Next we're going to move on to our meat and we're going to prep the burgers. So next up is the lean beef burgers. So pretty simple ingredients in this. We're going to put some Gym Chef spices, so some tomato and herb, and I like to mix it up between the two. I can never decide and they're all really good, so tomato and herb. Sometimes use a smoke and spice, sometimes use peri peri. I'll chuck a bit of chilli in there as well just to spice it up a little bit. Really simple, a couple of cloves of garlic, and we've got some pre-chopped onions just to make my life a lot easier. I just find this is just so much more simpler. And an egg. So the ratio is 500 gram of lean mince to 1 egg basically. We're just going to mix it up and then we're going to mould them into burger shapes and then fry them off. So first off, I'm going to chop the garlic cloves. So I like garlic, you don't have to put this in if you don't want, but put a couple of garlic cloves in basically just to give it some taste. A lot of people think that you can't have taste if you're on a diet or a fat loss program, but it's opposite. With the Gym Chef spices, I use those because they've not got any like added sugar. So yeah, I use these spices because it's not got any added sugar in it. If you look at a lot of like, I'll chop it right way around. Using wrong side at knife here. Anyway, you can keep that if you want. I'm a bit worried for myself. I'm only 2 weeks into this prep and already I've clipped 2 extension cable attachments together instead of to the machine, and I'm now using a knife upside down, so pray for me because I've got 10 bumps of this. Anyway, so I use the Gym Chef spices because they have no added sugar, and a lot of pre-mixed spices in the supermarkets have extra sugar in and like preservatives and horrible stuff, and extra salt, like a lot of salt. Salt's okay, but just in moderation. So I basically use Gym Chef because they haven't got any of that crap in, and it's just pure spices, so I trust those spices. Otherwise I'll mix them on my own, but I don't know, when it comes to food prep I'm getting quite lazy because I do a lot of it. So there we go, so that's the garlic done, and we're just gonna just crush it that way without me cutting myself basically. So we're just crushing it like that, and then we're just gonna chop it up. You're just going to mix it up, and then we're going to mould it into the burger shapes using a cookie cutter. The only thing I use this cookie cutter for is the burgers. So next we're going to put the onions in. So I weigh everything out because some people might think this is a bit OCD or whatever, but you've got to pay attention to everything, and I know what works. So we've got 500 gram of mince here, and I'm just going to put 50 gram of onion in there. Just look how easy that is, just because it's pre-chopped. So that's in there, and then the spices, we're going to put tomato and herb in. As a guide, I'd say a couple of teaspoons maybe, but I just guess it, to be honest. These haven't really got any calories in, so that were about a third of a tub. I'm always a bit tight with these. Being from Yorkshire, a bit tight with the spices because I don't want to use them all up and have to order them again. So same with this, just a little bit less, probably like 1 teaspoon. I'm not going to be super precious about this. There's barely any calories in them, so yeah, it's fine. So that's all the ingredients in. And then last thing to do is crack an egg. See if I can do this without getting shell in there. So I did A-level cooking at school, so you know, hopefully I know what I'm doing. And I don't bother like mixing the egg up, none of that crap. So all I do is just like mix it around in the bowl and then just mix everything together and stick it together basically. So I just like give it a little whisk with a spoon like that, and then it's just like mix it in, and it should become like gooey, sticky together. If you put too much egg in, it goes really sloppy in the pan. I've tried this and failed, so yeah, it goes really sloppy in the pan. Sometimes I've tried putting in, it works okay, but like putting in like cherry tomatoes, like cut cherry tomatoes, just like a few, or you could put like sunblush tomatoes in here as well. That can work quite well. So just give it a good mix and make sure it's all in there. Right, that's pretty well mixed now. So next thing I do is weigh each burger out. Now there's a couple of ways you could do this. If you want to be accurate about it, I'll show how I can do it, and here's one I prepared earlier. So we'll weigh the whole thing out. If you want to be really anal and not guess, and really precise and not guess, then we'll weigh the whole thing out, divide it by however many grams that I need per burger. Because like the other thing is I don't add a lot of extra ingredients to this because it's hard to know how much meat's actually in there for like my macros and stuff. So I prefer to keep like as raw as possible, if that makes sense. Because if you're adding like peppers in there, mushrooms and all sorts, you're gonna have to weigh the overall sort of grammage of everything and then divide that, but then meat shrinks. So I always put my meat in like as a sort of cooked weight. So I don't know, I like to keep all my meat pretty basic and then add things later on, if that makes sense. So there's, now they've put the onion in and the egg, there's 630 grams there. There we go. So 630 grams. So we're going to divide that by 6 burgers, and then we've got like an equal amounts of burgers basically. So all you do is you get your cookie cutter. This is sort of a palm size of my hand, so about that size there. So this is about the size of my hand, so you've got a guide there. And then we're just going to pop it on, zero it out. So we're going to go with, what's 630, what? 105 grams. Good job I've got a good cameraman, isn't it? So we're going to go with 105 grams per burger. You knew what was coming then, didn't you? So just weighing that out, basically. These will be quite thin, so they'll be quite quick to cook as well. So I'd say this is probably the longest thing of the whole prep, food prep to do. So I am really particular. Within about a gram or two. So all you do with this is you just squish it down into the corners, basically. So I'm just going to slide that across there a bit. So that, you'll see in a minute when I take this mould off. That's a pretty good like shaped burger. And then we're just going to repeat that. So across there, zero it. I'm just going to get stuck in, sod it. It's easier. So 105, that's not a bad guess, 103. 105, and then push hands on there. So I don't know why, I find like doing it this way retains a bit more moisture, and it doesn't go like dry. So if I cook mince like on its own, I'm trying not to add like sauce and like tomato sauce and things like that to it, just because it's extra calories, extra carbs. So I find if I like cook it just as mince with just like basically this but not in burger format, it dries out. So the trick is, I'll show you when we actually cook them, and hopefully I'll do it right today, is to like cook them just enough so they're slightly undercooked in the middle. So I think the temperature of the pan is quite essential there. So there we are, we've got our burgers prepped. We're gonna, well, it don't matter which order you do it in next, basically. We can fry these off, or we can start a slow cooker chicken. Let's prep the chicken. Let's prep all the meat at once, right? And then we're gonna move over to the hob and do both at the same time. So they're done, I'm just gonna put them to one side now. So the rice is done. We're gonna do the chicken in a sec, but the rice is now done. So that's how fast it was. So it wants to look quite like sticky. That's how I found is better. This is why I do a little bit extra just in case, and then I loosen it off with and cool it down with a couple of like whatever they're called, water jug things. It comes with it anyway. Just give it a stir around. The tip with rice, some people like say, oh, you can't reheat rice. Well, I've been doing it for years and I'm fine. So I'm not telling you do have to do it or you don't, but I'm just saying in my experience it's absolutely fine. So if you cool it quickly, then it'll be okay and you can reheat it. I've never had a problem with it. So we'll just give it a bit of quick stir, just to put a bit more water in it. So a couple of these, I find that's all right. And it just sort of like cools it down a bit. We need to get this portioned up and into the fridge as soon as possible, basically. So just loosen that off there. And then, as a guess, I'm gonna portion it up, basically. And I usually weigh it out. So just because I like to have everything perfectly portioned, basically. So we're gonna portion the rice up and weigh it out. So we've got 7 portions, ones for each day, basically. So I'm just gonna get my scales. Wait a minute. So I'm just gonna get my scales and just portion up. So it's basically just a process. It's a rough estimation because it depends how much. Obviously, I add water to it. I put my macros into my fitness pal on a dry weight for carbs and for rice because it adds water, so it adds volume. But then I weigh it out, obviously, wet. So I don't know, I'm just having a bit of a guess, but I usually find it's about 2 scoops of this. So I just take note, that's 210 gram of rice there. And then it's rough, like there's only me eating this, so it's rough but accurate at the same time. There's only me eating it, so it doesn't really matter. It's an average across the week. So everything you do in bodybuilding or when you're like dieting or whatever is rough across a week, so it's all average. So I'm going to go with 200. So what I'm going to do, there's 200 in that one, 210 in that one. This might sound complex, but I'm going to take 10 grams of this out. I just think it's like quite important to get things smoothly balanced basically across all your days, because obviously if you're eating more on one day than another day, your energy dips, your training could suffer. I just like to keep things at equilibrium. So this is rough. I might need to take some out, but that's fine. Right, so I scrape everything out of this. Like I say, I'm not wasting my carbs. I'm not throwing them in a bin or down the sink. So we've got 150, just spill a bit, 150 grams of rice, cooked rice in there. Obviously that was 40 grams of dry weight. So as you see, like, it's a lot of volume added. So that's roughly about right. This one's slightly short by like 7 grams, but I probably put that bit in, it's probably gonna be fine. 5 grams, so about 145, 150 grams. So before I put them in the fridge, I'm gonna label them up. So I've got a bit of a tip for you here. So I found these labels on Amazon. They're just like sticky labels. I've had these for about 1.5 years, 2 years now. So I just label them up with a dry white marker, and it just allows me to like easily identify in the fridge what's in there. So I'm just going to put like 40 rice and then and leave room for like my meat there. So every single one gets labelled up, and then that goes to the front of the fridge so I can see on the shelf what's actually in there without having to root through. And it just allows me to rotate my food as well in accordance to what I've cooked. So you could put the date on there or whatever, but they're just really handy to have, to be honest. So labelling it up like this really helps if you're obviously like carb cycling, or you're having the same like carb source throughout the day, different amounts. With like around training time, we might need more or whatever. So it just really helps identify what's in there, and then you're not guessing. There's no guesswork here, and everything's sort of like on track and on plan. So that's the rice done. I'm going to get this straight in the fridge. It's still warm, but as soon as if you cool the rice faster, you shouldn't have a problem. I've been doing this for years, like I said, it's fine. Next, we're using chicken thigh. So we're doing a cashew and ginger chicken thigh in the slow cooker. So dead easy, quick, simple, but tasty. Maximum taste, least effort possible. That's what I like to do. So I'm doing it from this skinny slow cooker cookbook that I found in the back of the cupboard. I was just looking for something a bit different. So we're going to follow this recipe. I've made this about 3 or 4 times now. I just keep making it. It's really nice. The reason for using chicken thigh is because it has least inflammation effect on the body. So chicken breast is forced basically. In 13 weeks, like the chickens are forced to grow. If you're using chicken thigh, the legs like move, if that makes sense. So they're moving more, and there's a lot more nutrient in the chicken thigh. So even though it's got more fat, I have trimmed it off and I've used it from the butchers or organic free range. It is a lot better for you. It's got more nutrients in there, and it's just sort of less inflammatory for your gut and for your whole body. So we're gonna basically start off with the flour. So I'm using brown rice flour instead of normal like wheat flour. So if you've got any intolerances, this is really good. And we're just going to dust around. So I tend to use like a tablespoon of flour, and we're just going to like coat the chicken in the flour. I got this from Sainsbury's. You can get it from Holland and Barrett and places like that. So we're just going to basically coat the chicken in flour. If you were being really super strict with your like carbs, calories, at this stage of my prep I'm not, but if you were a bit like further on in your diet, then you could just not put this in, but it's minimal, to be honest. So 500 grams of chicken thigh to like 1 tablespoon of flour, so there's not like much in there in terms of calories or carbs. So that's it, that's the full prep for this. The only other things we need to do is put everything in the slow cooker and then fry this off, and that's your chicken done. As simple as that. So next we're gonna just basically chuck all the ingredients in the slow cooker before we put this on the hob. So I'm just put that to one side and move that out of the way. So I still have to follow the recipe just because I like to make sure it's right. So it says freshly grated ginger, but you know what? I'm just saying it's gonna be, I use this stuff and it's been fine. So yeah, so 2 teaspoons of that. I've you can see this was pretty full, so I have genuinely used it. Tried and tested for you all, so I can make all the mistakes so you don't have to. So just put that in there. This adds a little bit of like spice to the recipe. I think I'm just going to chuck it all in. Why not? So that's that ginger in. Now the recipe asked me to put brown sugar in, but I'm using this sugar substitute, the Truvia. So it says half a teaspoon of sugar. Obviously sugar is quite sweet, but this is sweetener, so yeah. But I'm going to put like a heaped teaspoon in there, and that's what I've been doing, and it's been pretty good. It just adds a little bit of sweetness to it without being like over calorized, and it adds a balance to the tomato puree. We need a tablespoon of tomato puree. So just like on there. So this is nice and rich flavour, and you're not, again, like not loads of carbs in there. So you've not got to be too precious, but just like lots of flavour. So it's a concentrated flavour basically. And then we're going to put a teaspoon of the Gym Chef garlic and herb in there, just for a little bit more taste. And then we need to put chili flakes in. So I like it quite spicy. It says a teaspoon, but we'll go a little bit more. So like maybe 1.5. They're just regular chili flakes. And then just salt and pepper basically, and a bit of stock, and then we're done. So pink salt, sea salt, whichever you want to use, just ideally not low salt. So that's that. We're just going to make the stock now, and then that's ready to go. I've got a regular OXO cube in here, a vegetable one, but the stock pots are quite good from Lidl. So I'm saying Lidl specifically because I compared the Nor's one, which is like a leading brand, to the Lidl one, and they were a lot better. If you look at a previous video, you'll see that when I did the food shop, I've got a comparison on there, and I read out the macros and stuff, so that was a lot better. So basically I just use like a cup of water and pour it in there, and then make sure it's just covering the chicken. So we're going to do that now. So that's the slow cooker cooked. No, it's not. We're not cooking the slow cooker. That is the slow cooker prepped for the chicken to go in after we've fried it off. Next we're going to move on to just prepping like an omelette tray bake, I'm going to call it. This is just the thing that I found is working better for me at the moment. Instead of cooking an omelette every single day for my second meal, I'm just doing it in a big tray and like portioning it up. So I'll do maybe like 2 or 3 days at a time. So it's just like less effort basically. So I'm all about that. So we're going to get the omelette ingredients ready, and then we're going to head finally over to the hob. So now we're going to do an egg tray bake. Multiple portions in one go cooked, very efficient. So we've got whole eggs, we've got egg whites. These are from Amazon. I've been using these Uncle Jack's ones, and I'm saying this specifically because they're quite hard to find in big ones. At the moment, I'm eating a lot of eggs because I find it really good for satiety. So I'm eating about 6 of these a week. It's just like liquid egg white. Saves you having to crack all the eggs, it's less messy. And then we've got pre-cooked frozen pepper and mushrooms. And we're just gonna like basically mix the egg whites and the eggs together. The reason for doing that, by the way, is because obviously eggs contain fat. Egg whites do not contain fat, they just contain protein. So I'm on quite low fat, around 60 gram at the moment, just because there's 9 calories per gram in fat and 4 calories per gram in protein. So it allows me to get lots of volume in without having the extra calories from the fats from the eggs. So there's the explanation for that. So basically I'm going to cook up 3 portions. So I would normally have this for my second meal. I normally have 150 ml of egg whites and then 2 eggs per meal. So we need to basically treble that. So we've got 6 eggs, and then we've got 450 gram or mil of egg whites basically. So you go through these quite fast when you're doing this in a week. So like I said, 6 of these is quite hefty. It's about 30 quid for 6 at the moment. So that's 4.50 of that. So you can see that's about half of that. So this'll, for this one meal, it'll last me about 6 days. And then just crack 6 eggs, as simple as that. We're gonna add a bit of salt and pepper. And then we're just going to fry off the, you can put a bit of onion in if you want, but we can fry off the mushrooms, fry off the peppers, and just put it in the tray. That's 3 down, 3 to go. And I always buy mixed eggs or medium eggs because no one wants the small ones. And free range as well, free range. Definitely, because I don't know, they just taste better and they're just better basically. So that's 6 eggs in there. I'm going to wash my hands, and then we're going to put salt, chilli flakes in, pepper in, and jobs are good, as we say in Yorkshire. Right, back from the sink. Good healthy amount of pepper in there. Adds a little bit of like spice to it, I find. Not good when you've got a forearm injury. Got a twist of my good arm. If anyone's been following my Instagram, they'll see that I've had a forearm injury now for the last 7 weeks, so it's really annoying. But we're getting by. And just a good amount of salt. Because it's a lot of egg whites, I find you need some sort of taste from other things, basically. So then we're just going to whisk that up. I always get scared of these whisks, like it flicks up at you. Like, that's an awful sound, isn't it? Right, that's the eggs whisked. Right, so next thing to do is weigh out the peppers. So it doesn't have to be peppers, it can be like, I'll have like courgettes, or like, I'll mix this up a little bit because, you know, us bodybuilders can't always be the same, but we need to be quite consistent. So I roughly know how many carbs are in peppers. So 50 grams per meal, so we need 150 grams for 3 portions. And just look how easy this is. You don't even have to like cut all the middles out and mess around. You can even scan the barcode for MyFitnessPal, it's dead easy. So 150 in there of that, and then we're going to put 50 grams, just for ease, 50 grams of per portion of mushrooms, so that's 150 again. And then sometimes, it just depends, I put, what do I put in? Yes, I put white potato in. The CQ10 supplement has not kicked in yet, I've just started taking today. Been off it for a while, so if you're struggling with memory loss like me right now, I would recommend you start taking it when it gets further into my prep, you know. It gets worse, so we have to like 3 times that. So we're just slicing these, nothing too fancy, it's pretty basic, but do you know what, basic works. Just keep it simple, stupid, as I say. So there we go, 150 grams of peppers, 150 grams of mushrooms, ready to go in the pan, and then we're going to put this all into a baking tray and cook it in the oven. So we're now obviously over the hob, as you can see. We're just going to cook off the burgers and the chicken thigh, the vegetables, and then we're going to basically, that's it done for that part. Pretty done. And then the only thing left to do is take the veg and, what is left to do? Take the veg and the potatoes, oh it's getting worse this, veg and potatoes out of the steamer and put the tray bake in the oven, and then that's the food prep done for like maybe a good like solid 4 days, if not 5, depends how much I'm eating. So what I'm doing with this, I'm putting just a little bit of coconut oil in. I don't track this in my macros. Yeah, so a little bit in each pan basically, just so things don't stick. This is better than using olive oil, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, vegetable oil. It's like the most superior oil in my opinion, because it's accessible, it's not too expensive, and it's got a low burning rate, whereas olive oil's got a higher burn rate, so it takes less time to heat up olive oil and get to a temperature, and it becomes carcinogenic, which is very bad for the inflammation in the body. This is better and it doesn't burn as high temperature, so that's why I use that. So I'm just getting the pans nice and hot, especially for me. I just find it like cooks quicker, so we just spin it around in the pan. This one's gonna be for the chicken, so we'll get going with that. So chicken is just a frying off, so you're not cooking it all the way through basically. So one thing to note is I've been cooking chicken thigh a while now. Obviously you could cook it in the pan just like straight through, but I just find it a lot nicer to eat, especially cold, if you're cooking it in the slow cooker. I have got an air fryer as well, but I just find the slow cooker is just like a lot nicer. But try and make sure it's fully sort of like butterflied, if you like, in the pan, just to make sure it's evenly cooked through or cooked off. I've left a little bit of fat on this just for flavour, but if you're really watching your calories, we can trim that off as well, just to reduce that down, because as I mentioned, your fat is higher calories, so 9 per gram, than protein. Protein and carbs are 4 calories per gram and fat is 9 calories per gram basically. So that's a chicken on the go. So griddle pan for the burgers now. Just make sure that's spinning around. So these should have set in the time, so you can see they're pretty set now. Pretty solid because the eggs bound them together. That's nicely hot there. And just slide them off. So this is made with 3% beef. I actually got this beef from the butchers, so it's pretty lean. And then last but not least is the veg for the tray bake, the egg tray bake. So one thing to note about the veg, and generally everything that I do, is because I'm tracking things in MyFitnessPal, at the moment I'm a little bit flexible with the amounts that I put in things, but I keep everything at 50s just because it's easier to remember. So like the egg whites was like 150, the mushrooms are 50, or it's like 150 for the whole thing, and then the peppers were 50 per portion, so it's just easy to remember. Everything's 50 basically, or in like equal number amounts. I don't know why, it's easy in my brain to remember. So I know now, without writing this down, that the burgers are 100, thereabouts, or 105 I think it was. That's 50 and 50, and then the chicken I weigh out after when it's cooked. So yeah, just simply in my head. So just let them cook through. So the burgers I keep on like a medium heat, just so they cook through enough. So especially when you're reheating things, you have to allow for them to sort of cook again almost, so they don't go dry. So me with my 2 spatulas. That is, the burgers are just about done. I've flipped them a couple of times and we're making sure they're cooked through enough. Just need a little bit longer. I've turned the heat up a little bit. The chicken's fried off but not fully cooked through, and the veg is cooked, so we just need to add that to the tray bake and add the chicken to the slow cooker, and that's it. Right, so as I said, chicken thigh cooked off, vegetables cooked through and in the pan for the tray bake. So all we've got to do now is add the chicken to here, which I haven't got a fork. Hang on, wait. Right, I've got the fork. So just gonna pop that in there basically. Obviously earlier we put all the spices and everything in there already, and then we're just going to add the stock to it and just leave that for, I usually cook it overnight, to be honest, for 12 hours, and then when I wake up in the morning it's all done and prepped, and like I just take it out and weigh it out basically. Really easy. I've only got a small slow cooker here, so if you wanted to do a bigger portion, you know, if you're working away or whatever, you could do that. So that's chicken in there. All I'm gonna do is like give it a quick, basically I try and get some of the spices to the top. So if I put the stock in here, I usually find like a cupful is enough, but I might add a little bit more depending. And just make sure everything's like from the bottom, so all the spices are from the bottom of there. If you wanted to, I suppose you could add the spices into the stock, so then it's like pouring over the top of it. So I just need to make sure that that tomato is all mixed up. It all kind of goes quite sort of falling apart anyway. And then we're just going to serve this with either noodles or rice with some cashew nuts on the top. So that's the chicken done, and then all we've got to do is add this to the tray. And then we're just going to put the eggs in and pop that in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes on around 220 degrees. If you wanted to, like I said, you could add like sliced white potato already cooked to this. And it's kind of like a frittata, so literally just gonna add all that in there, and that's it. And I'm gonna pop that in the oven. So carefully pop this in the oven without spilling it, which is difficult for me sometimes. So here we go. Oh no, I can't do this in one take. So it's going in the oven. There we go. And that's it, voila. So all that's left to do now is just get my Tupperware out. Basically, I've got a little tip for you here. I've got different Tupperwares for different things, so I can easily identify in the fridge, as well as having my labels. I'm very organised. So yeah, different Tupperware for different types of food and different meals. So I've got more than this in the cupboard, but basically like one meal will be the black ones, another meal will be these ones, another meal will be these ones. My breakfast, obviously I cook from fresh, and my post-workout meal I sort of put together later, so I don't put them as like a full meal. And then obviously my evening meal I put together from fresh. So all I've got to do is portion up meals for meals 2 and 3. Meal 4 is usually something like oats and egg, or oats and whey, so I can do that while I'm at work. So in terms of food prep, it doesn't have to take me that long, so it fits with my lifestyle just fine. So yep, so while we're waiting for the slow cooker, which is going to go overnight, and for the tray bake, all that's left to say is thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like more of this type of content, give me a like. And I'm going to put down on the screen how much this cost, so you can see you can do bodybuilding on a budget. And also just to say that this only took me an hour basically, so very efficient. Even if you're busy, you've no excuses, so get at it.